I just spent 10 minutes figuring out the little insert in my bra thing or whatever, my sports bra, so it can cover the. It's all a moment. I know what you're thinking. Just don't bother with the whole bra thing, but I have to do that thing. But that has nothing whatsoever at all to do with what we're making today. I mean, well, kind of, because we are talking about milk. So we're starting our milk, round of soapy, deep dives or whatever. So yeah, but not breast milk. We're not, well, not my breast. Anyway, today we are starting our milk journey, and I will tell you more about the milk journey and why it's going to be awesome in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You are at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things. And as I said, today we are kicking off our milk series. So we will be doing a deep dive on all things milk in both soap and cosmetics. And so we will be working with multiple different types of milk and hopefully answering a lot of questions along the way. Because a lot of questions can come up when you're using milks, either animal or plant-based. Should we be freezing it? What happens when the lye scorches? Is it bad for the milk? Does it render all of the cool active ingredients of the milk inert? What are all those cool active ingredients within the milk anyway? Etc. and so forth. So that is what we'll be focusing on today, and we will be starting with an animal milk. Now, this is weird for me because I'm a vegan company. I am not vegan in and of myself. I actually grew up on a cattle ranch, but I do not use any animal products within any of my soap ever. And so this is definitely a new one for me. In fact, I have never made a cow's milk soap. Never, not once in my life. There's never been a reason for it. When you grow up on a cattle ranch, it's like the milk is always used for all kinds of other things. You know what I mean? So you're making your butter, you're making your cream, you're doing all of your things. And just kind of generally in life, we go through milk like crazy. All different types of milk within my family. And so while I do put coconut milk in the dried variety into a lot of my soaps, I don't do a whole lot with actually using fresh milks. And so that's what we will be doing. We will be working today, as I said, with a cow's milk. Now, within this series, I'm going to make between 4 and 6 soaps. I haven't quite decided what yet. And I'll be using different ways to incorporate the milks into our lye solution. And I will also be doing, of course, lather tests on all of it. And so for this first soap, I'm going to be doing the following. First, I am going to be using fresh cow's milk, and so not pasteurized. And we're going to talk about that because in a moment of crazy timing, actually, there is somebody that's on Twitter right now, or was a couple days ago, that was just going to town fighting the anti-pasteurization people. So I figured it might be a good idea to talk about the benefits as far as topically between, fresh milk, raw cow's milk, and pasteurized milk, as well as, what we do know about ingesting and all the things. Like we do. We like to break down all the ingredients, do the things. So I will be using fresh raw milk for this one. Tomorrow's video, I will be doing pasteurized milk. And of course, we get the lather tests with all of them to see what the big difference is. Now, in addition to that, I'm going to be using 2 different types of lye solution. So I will be splitting the batch in half, and therefore thus the lye solution, adding the milk as 100% of my water replacement, 1 in frozen form, 1 in liquid form. We're going to see the differences in color in the lye solution. We're not going to put any colorants whatsoever into this, and we're going to see in the finished product what it looks like. If there's a difference between ice cube version versus non-ice cube version, room temperature, leaning into the scorching, all of the things. Sounds like a lot, right? It's really not. It's kind of an easy soap, so let's get to the pouring so we can talk all about it. I would like you to know that I bought 2 things for this. Fresh cow's milk, which was harder to find than I thought it would be. I figured just like the local, frou-frou store would have it, but like a Whole Foods-esque, they didn't have it. So anyway, it was a big old journey. And ice cubes, or ice cube trays, rather. Because I don't use this. I don't have ice cube trays in my house. This is not a journey that I go on. And so, because I don't ever freeze my milks, but I'm going to do the thing and we're going to see what it all looks like, the differences in the lye solution and the scorching and all the things. Because a lot of people get really concerned about the scorching and what it will do and whether or not it will, well, essentially render any of the goodness from milk ineffective. And so we are going to talk about that for sure. Now, with this, what I'm going to do, as you can see, kind of, I mean, you don't know what my measurements or anything are, but I am going to use a lye solution with the milk as the water and soaping at 2.4 times water to lye. And the other lye solution, still 2.4 times water to lye, but with room temperature milk. And we're going to look at the differences in heat, the differences in color, the ultimate differences in the end product. Like, what does it look like? If it gets super dark and weird, does it look, does it that show up in the final soap? So that's what we're going to be doing. And while we're doing that, let's talk about the overall components of a cow's milk and what we can expect to get from this, well, from the milk, from the lye solution in our finished products. So what is raw cow's milk made up of? So it's about 85% water. And so we know what water does. Great, great, great. It's about 5% lactose. Now, lactose and lactic acid are two different things. One of the benefits of using the raw cow's milk would be that if you let it set out, at room temperature for like a day or whatever, it will start to sour and it will start to form lactic acid because it's interacting with the bacteria in the environment. If you do not and you keep it cold, you're not going to get any lactic acid. That lactose is not going to convert. And so we'll talk more about what lactose does in a minute. But in addition to water and lactose, we also have about 3.4%, 3.5% fat. And as you can see with the lye solutions here, I started to mix up the one that was at room temperature, so not in solid form, first, and just let the other one sit, even though I poured that solution first. And you could see the hot pockets start to form around the actual container. Will that break a glass if you did that? No. Do I ever say that you should use glass for your lye solutions? Also, no. But it's completely fine to use in soap making generally. That's why I used glass. Just friendly PSA. I don't think I've said it in July yet. But anyway, so you can see the hot pockets within all of that. That is the lye interacting with the milks and realistically burning off some of the lactose as well as some of the enzymes. And so what does that mean for your finished product? Will that actually mean that it doesn't work or you've lost all of the goodness from it? No, and I'm going to explain to you why after we, do an info card and show you the massive differences between those two lye solutions. It's pretty legit. And on to the pour, and within the oil recipe for all of this, I'm going to use the same oils, the same recipe throughout all of the tests because obviously we are doing kind of compare and contrast, only changing one thing. And so the recipe that I am using is going to be for my shavers. And so I have 30% coconut oil, 30% olive oil, 20% palm, 10% shea, and 10% avocado oil. And this is being soaped at a 3% super fat. And so with this, again, 2.4 times the water to the lye. I soap at 2.4 times the water to the lye because I use lots and lots of clays. And clays like to soak up the water. And that is very interesting how much extra sediment was left in that guy, for sure. Okay, so back to the what else is in milks. So we have in the raw milk, so we have around 3.5% fats, 3.2% proteins in the form of casein and whey, mostly casein. And then we have some trace minerals, we have some trace vitamins, and we have trace amounts of enzymes and beneficial bacteria. Now, what do each of these things do? Obviously, water is going to be the thing that we use, our vessel with which to, well, essentially make the lye really, really mad, so it can then be converted into, our salts within the saponification process. So we know what that does. Lactose in and of itself, it is a humectant, and so it will attract moisture to skin, much like a glycerin. And with the lactose, it actually can undergo saponification. So it will turn into soap, which kind of makes a lot of sense because lactose is in the same, family as all of the, like our glycerins and our sugars and all the things. And its effect when it comes in contact with like high temps, which is what anything over 160 degrees, which is what we're dealing with whenever we make a lye solution, for example, it can essentially caramelize and it can lose some of those moisturizing properties, but not enough to really matter. We're going to effectively treat the lactose as we would sugar in our end result. Now, obviously, the fats, it will undergo saponification as well. The fats will. We know that. And obviously, we know what fat does within soap. And with the proteins. So the biggest things with the proteins are a lot of amino acids within the proteins. And we have talked about how those break down within saponification. So it can lose its structural integrity, but it's being broken down into its smaller bits, the proteins. And so a lot of that still remains after saponification. And then as far as the minerals go, again, trace amounts, so we shouldn't really expect much, but I mean, generally speaking, the minerals in milk will support the skin barrier function, and they are pretty stable. In fact, they're very stable because most of the minerals that exist within cow's milk are things that will not saponify at all. So that's great. Let's move on to the cut of this, which will not be C-popped or gelled. Now, the reason I'm not C-popping or gelling any of these soaps is because the milk soaps tend to overheat. They tend to get hotter than you would normally expect. And I went ahead and soaped these hot as well. And as you can see, we definitely had some separation going on with all of that. It did expand a little bit. And you can see the two different colors there from how I poured it into the mold. We have a lighter side and a darker side, but it's very, very slight. It's nothing that's really meaningful in the end result, especially considering how dark orange that lye solution was for the room temperature, lye. And okay, what else do we have within the cow's milk, the raw milk? So again, the vitamins are going to be obviously your antioxidants, all the jazz. Some of them are going to be sensitive to heat and they can be destroyed within the actual lye solution and the saponification process. And the enzymes and the beneficial bacteria. Well, first up, enzymes and the bacteria can be anti-inflammatory, can be healing, but because it is higher temperatures, where again the lye solution gets up to 100 and at least 160, even with your frozen cubes, right? And so the heat can definitely inactivate the enzymes and kill off that bacteria. So are you reasonably getting that in your end product? No. I'm going to go with no for all of that. Now, in a solution like a cosmetic and you're keeping it at lower heats, could you maintain these benefits? Sure. It does make it a little bit more difficult though if you have active enzymes and bacteria within your soaps or within your cosmetics for preservation purposes. So I would just want to kill them off regardless. And because there's such a trace amount of it, it doesn't super matter. It's not going to be enough to really write home about. But what I wanted to talk about for sure is the lactic acid in milk. Now, in and of itself, milk, whether it's pasteurized or raw, it does not contain lactic acid. It contains lactose, right? And when it comes in contact with, bacteria, when it's left out effectively, if it's not refrigerated, if it's not kept cold, over time it's going to ferment. And so if it hits room temperature, you let it set out for a day, it can start to ferment, and then the lactic acids will therefore, increase effectively because of the bacterial activity. Now, where are you going to actually find good lactic acid? Well, I mean, like sour cream, right? That's what that kind of tangy taste from sour cream comes from. Or yogurts, same thing. And so if you wanted to make sure that you had really good lactic acid, which is awesome because it's an alpha hydroxy acid that really helps with an exfoliation, it helps with removing dead skin cells, promoting cell turnover, all of the jazz. You're going to want to go with using products that have already soured, or again, leaving your milk out on the counter, at least for, I don't know, several hours. I would say a whole day though. Open, exposed, do that for sure. Since we know that the heat is going to ultimately kill the bacteria anyway, it doesn't really matter as far as any additional bacteria, but if you're forming the lactic acid, which will survive saponification, I think it is a good idea to do that and not just do straight from the fridge. So to that, could you then freeze your milk after it's been allowed to sit out for a while? Absolutely. You totally could if you prefer to go the cold route. But as you can see with all of this, it's not making much of a difference. Is there a difference in either one of these these lye solutions based on how they were, created? So via the liquid or the ice? No, you're not losing anything with that heat because we're talking about a difference between 160 degrees to like 190 between the two. Does heat up, certainly, but anything over 160, you're going to start, all of the things that can degrade will degrade regardless. And so I don't think there's going to be much of a benefit at all. Will it speed up your saponification or your emulsions? It also shouldn't. If you are soaping at room temperature with your oils and your lye solution, so you allow it to cool down really nicely, you should still be able to get a really lovely pour out of your milk if you use just regular room temperature, milk. So there's really not a lot of difference. There's also no real difference as far as the look and the feel of the bar. You can see the two there. You can barely see it when it's all like the difference in color. There's no real texture difference between the two sides. And obviously we're going to test the one bar that has both in it. So you can't really tell the difference between the two, but I know this. There's no difference in the lather. And that lather is very, very beautiful for sure. I love milk soaps for the actual, the plant milk soaps. Always loved it because beautiful lather, but this kind of had me floored. I'd never done a cow's milk soap before. And so this one was really, really lovely. Felt delightful on my hands. I wouldn't say that I'm just going to become like a milk soap maker as a result, but I was chuffed. This was a really, really beautiful, lather test for this, and first experience using cow's milk. Nothing exploded, nothing looks weird, and I love it. That lather is great. And there it is, first up in our milk soap series. And yeah, no, it's a very easy soap to make. As you can see, there was a huge difference between the actual lye solutions. And when you put all four of them together, between the pasteurized versus the raw milk, and see the different colors, it's very pretty for sure. Did it actually show up in the end result? Not really. It made a very, very slight difference to the overall color of the bar when it was all said and done. As far as whether or not any of the good things that you're going to get from the milk are ruined because of the extra heat, no. That's not really how breaking down most things work. I mean, when there is a temperature thing in effect, obviously it's almost always correlated to time as well. So it's time and temperature. And as those things continue to trend in the same way, then you start running into problems. With this in particular, no, we shouldn't expect to really be getting much of any loss from any of the components that exist within milk, with the exception of the ones that I already mentioned within, the bulk of the video. As far as the lather goes, wow. I really like milk soaps just kind of generally, but this was a really cool hand feel. It was a very delightful, like almost calming feel on the skin, and that's just with my hands. And so using it on my face, I think would be a delight. I definitely see why there would be room in a line for milk soaps and milk cosmetics specifically targeted to skincare to face care. I really think that that would be a wonderful thing to do outside of label appeal because it feels great in the hand. And all the lactic acid and everything that exists within milks, when you have that in a cosmetic, yeah, really calming, really beautiful. Love it across the board. We're not talking about cosmetics yet, but we will be doing that soon. So definitely like, subscribe, notifications, bell, all the things, so you can be notified when I drop those, and you can come check out our tests with all of those for sure. For next up in this series, we will be working with a cow's milk that is pasteurized, so a vitamin D, a whole milk, in both frozen and not form, and that'll be dropping tomorrow. So, come back. Sudsers, hi. You guys are awesome. You always come back. I appreciate it. Yes, my voice does sound weird. Yes, I have been very sick. Mr. got back from Thailand, and I saw him for a hot 30 seconds and immediately just got sick. So that's a moment. But yeah, that's it. I love you guys. I hope you guys are having an excellent day and you guys are gearing up for all the awesome events this weekend. I will continue chatting with you guys in Discord, obviously, but see you and the rest of you that also exist here tomorrow for another round of soapy, milky fun. Bye.